They say revenge is a dish best served cold. For 2 seasons, Plymouth Argyle have travelled over the Severn Bridge to the Welsh capital, and on 2 occasions, Plymouth Argyle have been humbled and blown away by the Bluebirds. Oh, that was sweet yesterday, wasn't it? Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 goals against the league's best side. Cardiff City came to Home Park yesterday in front of a near full house and were blown away by Tom Cleverley's rampant Greens. Welcome along to the Green and White podcast, proudly brought to you by Argyle Life. And we have got one hell of a show for you tonight, as I just put myself back right along. It's jam-packed. There are so many wins for Argyle teams to discuss. We've got God knows how many wins for the men's team because we all weren't here in midweek. We've got 2 games for the women's team to talk about because they have gone back-to-back as well in the league. It's all coming your way over the course. I'm not even going to say it's over the course of the next hour, for however long until I get bored. Loads of questions coming in already. We will try to get to them tonight. There's so much to talk about. I can't promise anything, but we will do our best because we've also got 2 games to preview a little bit later on as well. From a clockwise motion, Graham, Finn and John have joined us. Finn is obviously here representing our close nation neighbours across the bridge, but I can assure you he is very firmly in the green camp tonight. Just checking that everybody can see us and everybody can make out that we are from Plymouth and we are Plymouth Argyle supporters. Just want to check because obviously yesterday there were quite a few colour clashes. So just want to make sure that we're all okay. We'll discuss the women's game from Wednesday night first, gents, if we can, because that was a Devon derby at Home Park. Graham, why don't you take the lead on this one because Marie Hurahan's side have been going great guns this year, as we all know. I mean, we talk about it every week on the radio station, and that's a quite fabulous way to cement their status as Devon's number 1 women's side.
Yeah, I'm slightly troubled to do so, Joe, because I was on a 3-line whip to go to Miss Saigon instead, which I did. And so surreptitiously checking the score as best that you can in the Theatre Royal. But I did see the highlights, and I think, in fairness, it was first half seemed to be pretty even, and I think the weather certainly didn't help the flow of the football. But second half, I think it was about the 60th minute, wasn't it? About halfway through the second half, got the first goal, and then which was a good finish from Hampson on the right-hand side as she ran through. And then Phoebe got the winner in the last minute and sealed what seemed to be a convincing win. But I don't think it was as convincing as the scoreline might have suggested. But that didn't matter. It was a 2-0 win in front of what was said to be 6,500, which, when you consider teams in the Premiership like Man United get 4,500, West Ham get less than 2,000, it was an incredible turnout. And I'm sure many who went will want to come back and see them. I mean, we've got some big games coming up. We won again yesterday. Today, isn't it? Today, 2-0. But Watford won and Bournemouth won, so we're still in the mix. But we've got a big game against Bournemouth, not only the cup final but also the league game away, and I think that's going to be our defining game.
It was very clever by Argyle, wasn't it, on Wednesday night? Because it's very easy to say, "Oh, look, we got 6,500 in," when the tickets were available for free. But that's a very clever marketing ploy, because even if only 1/3 of that 6,500 were newcomers, and they were hooked on what they saw. That's a huge increase on the gate for their remaining games for the rest of the season, with what's going on at Fulston Park to boot moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. I think, like, there's been some really, I think personally, unfair, some unfair rhetoric going around on social media this season when the men's team haven't been doing particularly well, that possibly too much money is going into the women's team, and I don't think that's accurate at all, personally. And actually, the women's game needs our support, and I mean, what a way to drum up support, playing the way that they are at the moment. And I hope that that it isn't just, of course, 6,500 is an amazing figure, and I'm not sure that will sustain in the short term. But I'm hoping that games like that, where people can come for free, will allow crowds to increase, because, like I said, it's hardly it's Plymouth Argyle, right? And I think some people sometimes forget that. So it's just really good to see them getting the support that they deserve.
Absolutely, and the more that turn up, the better it is. And it was a tremendous atmosphere in that second half when they were basically willing the ball into the back of the net, and there were so many families as well. That's the important thing about the women's game, is it brings so many families into it, and that will drip feed. When people get hooked on football, at the end of the day, you don't care what it is, do you? You still turn up and you'll watch it. So hopefully the ploy of getting the place with a good crowd on Wednesday night will allow them to grow through the rest of the season, and they're not far off that playoff spot, which would be an unbelievable achievement to get themselves into that second tier of women's football, to be one rung below the Super League. As Graham's already alluded to, the average crowd already stands up to nigh on Super League levels as it is. So let's hope and pray that their form can be sustained. And as mentioned, there was a 2-0 victory today away at Wimbledon as well. So they are relentless. What is also relentless is Tom Cleverley's first team. And we've already touched upon it. There was a win in midweek at Leyton Orient. We'll touch more on the Orient game when it comes to player performances later on. We'll sort of amalgamate the two games and touch on people's influence on both games a little bit later on. But we must talk about the one game in hand, John Alsop, and that was Plymouth Argyle 5, Cardiff City 2. Tom Jones, your boys took one hell of a beating.
Yeah, and Finn beat me to it. I was going to say it's a real shame that the club has invested so much money in women's football when there's no demand for it, and the men's team are performing so poorly on the pitch, isn't it? It's shocking to see. No, I mean, I watched the game on TV yesterday. I'm in London, and also, for what it's worth, had a bug as well. So I'm not sure I'd have even made it to the ground if I was in Plymouth. But obviously, it was on Sky Sports Plus as a lunchtime kickoff, and yeah, I mean, I think even if I hadn't been under the weather, I'd have needed a lie down at the end. And I actually did have a nap afterwards because I was so energized and sort of on edge from what I'd witnessed. Obviously the game started as it meant to go on. Cardiff, should have scored after, I think, a minute and a half. Shot at the back post, I think, in the side netting. Just as I'm sort of digesting what a lucky escape that was, we go down the other end. Caleb Watts has, I think, probably the best chance of the game, actually, and puts it straight at the keeper. It's not necessarily a bad connection, but yeah, he's got to be doing better from there, and so that sort of set the tone for proceedings. A very even game, and it looked like two teams who were, really, really top quality for the level. And yeah, as I said, we'd already threatened when we took the lead about midway through the half, or maybe a bit after that. And it was a fantastic move. Cleverly, I think, has described it as our best team goal of the season. I actually would beg to differ. I felt the one at Blackpool last week, that the fourth was maybe just shaded it in terms of a silky passing move, but this one was not bad at all. Edwards playing it into the feet of Peppel, who just slid it around the corner beautifully into the path of Talai. And it's a classic Talai finish. We haven't seen him score, actually, I think, since the Doncaster game before Christmas. So it's been a while. Obviously, he's been out with injury for some of that time. But, it was just a poacher's instinctive effort to sort of spot that gap between the keeper and the post and bend it in. It's a really, really good goal. We don't really have time to digest that because Cardiff goes straight down the other end, hit the post. Rebound is tipped over the bar with an excellent save from Hazard. I'm not sure he knew too much about it. It was just pure instinct to thrust up his arm and tip it over the bar. That player probably should have scored, but it's a wonderful piece of goalkeeping to get himself, alert and up off the floor after that ball cannons back off the post, I think from Tanner. And then suddenly, again, I'm thinking we've had a bit of a lucky let-off and I don't have time to process it because we go up the other end and score again. And this time it's Edwards, all his own work, really. Lung-busting run down the right-hand side, catching them on the break. I have to say it's really poor defending from a Cardiff point of view. Their players are sort of jogging back. Meanwhile, Peppel is herring into the box and Edwards just puts the ball on a plate for him. It's a superb delivery. Peppel, I think that's one of those where a month or two ago, he probably would have put that into Rosette or scuffed it straight at the goalkeeper, but such is his vein of confidence that he never looked like missing. Opens up his body really well, great body shape and a really confident finish. And suddenly we're in the driver's seat, I should say. But again, not for too long. Cardiff goes straight back down the other end. It's an identical move to the one from which they'd hit the post a matter of moments before. I think we'll probably come on to it, but Wes Harding not covering himself in a ton of glory with his defending on either occasion. And this time Tanner cuts the ball back for Kellyman to put in a really sharp finish. It's a one you'd expect him to score, but the sort of little flourish, almost kind of not quite a back heel, but it's an odd sort of part of the foot to hit a side foot off, and he's kind of wedged it into the corner. Suddenly we're thinking, here we go. And then again, don't have time to digest that because we got the other end and scored the fourth goal in 6 or 7 crazy minutes. And this time it's Harding making amends for his poor defending with a superb ball in with his right foot to swirl it to the back post. Peppel attacks it 3-1. And I'm thinking if we could just go in with this at half time, we've got every chance of seeing the game out. But Cardiff, once again, get back into it just before the break. And it's Kellyman again, this time a superb curling shot from the edge of the box. I mean, that is one of the best goals we've seen at home park from an opposition player in a long time. I don't think there's a lot that we could have done about it. You could argue that maybe there's a little bit of standing off of him defensively, but at League One level, you're probably not expecting the opponents to be able to pull out a finish of that quality and precision. And at half time, I was saying to people in group chats, I think we'll lose this game because I think this is 2 unbelievable teams, but Cardiff just look really, really, really good. They are clearly the best team in the league. Don't think they're even, their defending left something to be desired, but I didn't think they were playing badly particularly. And I was sort of trying to preempt certain members of this podcast who aren't here tonight having the mother of all meltdowns at full time by saying, it's foreseeable that given that we're only 1 goal up, they could sort of come back into it. I was expecting a cagey second half. It's so often the way when you have a very open first 45 minutes with tons of goals and chances that the second half is a bit of a damp squib by comparison, or, both teams kind of try and put right and plug the holes that were there in the first half. And I sort of expected it to be cagey, and I just thought Cardiff might, kind of arm wrestle us down to the ground. And there would have been, to be clear, no shame in that. They are, I think, they were unbeaten since December, right? At least, maybe November. So clearly a team that are just very, very hard to beat. And instead, we came out and we wiped the floor with them. And it was the best half of football I can remember from this football club in a long time. And in recent weeks, there's been some stiff competition for that accolade because we have put in some fantastic halves of football. We've discussed them week after week on this pod. Often it's been the first half, and we've had that issue of seeing games out. And I think I actually raised this after maybe the Stockport game, or even the Lincoln game. There was a question mark as to whether the issue was a fitness one or a game plan one, or if it was just, we had 2 strikers on in those 2 games against Stockport and Lincoln, who one of them had to go off at half time or thereabouts. And that just kind of, blunted our press. And whatever the reason was in those games, I think there's a good case for it being the latter reason based on the evidence we've seen since then, when we've had more of a complement of strikers to be able to come off the bench, with obviously Talai coming back and what sort of pressed into service in various positions as well. But whatever the reason, Tuesday night, we proved that we can grow into a game. And yesterday we proved it with Knobs on. It was a sensational second half performance. We completely suffocated them. And yeah, and we got those 2 more goals to really just make it secure. Obviously, Talai with a fantastically dispatched penalty after. Be interested to hear what people have to say about it. I thought it was a little bit of a soft pen. It was kind of a hard one to see, even on the replay, because it's the camera's scanning. Either way, you know, we've had so many penalties denied to us. I mean, even the Mansfield game alone, we should have had 3. So I think we're owed a few. But we should also say, by the way, that came from a fantastic piece again of play from Peppel down the left-hand side, managing to get a ball in after getting past his man. Just relentless play from him once again. Talai dispatched it. And that wasn't, you know, we weren't done. Corner, Ronan Curtis's delivery, and we'll probably discuss him later as well. Struggling to think of a player who I've ever seen at any club, not just Argyle, have as much impact as he has had in terms of improving a team, just based on that, on one signing coming in. But his standard of delivery is worth several high-quality chances a game, seemingly, at the moment. And this was another just unbelievable corner put right into the 6-yard box. Their defence didn't want to go anywhere near it. And Matthias Ross steams in to bullet in a header and make it 5, just as he sealed the game in the week as well at Leyton Orient. So, and then after that, you know, even at 4-2, I'll admit to being a little bit nervous, just because Cardiff had proven in the first half they were capable of creating chances in rapid-fire succession. I think if they had got a goal back at 4-2, it would have been, you know, game on, and we'd have probably been biting our fingernails for the last 10. So I think that 5th goal, obviously it gives the final scoreline a gloss and a convincing aspect to it. But I actually think it was probably quite necessary to kill the game as well, given how good both teams looked going forward. But in that second half, you know, I think in that first half, if you'd asked me to identify which of these teams is top of the league, even though Cardiff were behind at the break, I might have said them, just because I felt some of their passages of play and individual quality was so high, even though we were more clinical in the moments that mattered. In the second half, we made them look like a mid-table team. And I'm going to say it, you know, I think at this moment in time, and this has been an opinion of mine that's been brewing for a few weeks, I think we're the best team in League One right now. And I think that, you know, that was an opinion that someone could very easily have turned around and said, well, what about Cardiff? Well, we played Cardiff. They played pretty well against us. And certainly in the second half, we absolutely demolished them. We are looking unbelievably good. And that is very, very exciting. And I think we'll probably come on later to discuss where that might take us or not, depending on, you know, how many games there are to go and how well we can do. But yeah, this is we've got our football club back, and then some, I think it's fair to say.
Absolutely. I think Lincoln might have a bit of an argument about who are the best team in League One at the moment, but we are. It's out of 2 teams, John. That's on current form and current levels of performance. It's only 2 teams in that argument, I think. And one thing that I will, one hill I am prepared to die on is right now we have the best strike partnership in League One. I don't think that is up for a debate, and people can throw whatever partnerships they want to be. It's you can't argue it. They are incredible, and as I say, we will come on to that.
What about
later?
What about Jamal Lowe and Jerry Yates?
Now, John. Now, it's been a very tough day for your friends in Yorkshire. Let's nip that in the bud until next year. But I'm sure.
And I do just want to say, in seriousness, obviously a dark day and something that couldn't have happened to a nicer club or set of fans. So yeah, see you next season or not.
There we go. He said his piece. Who knew as well that a Sheffield United player celebrating so close to the away fans would go down so badly? It's almost as if they've got short memories from what happened last year at Home Park, especially with it being City Peck as well. Let's talk on the game then. Open question to you all. John's given us a brilliant run through there of the goals. Which one's your favourite?
Yeah, I just mention Tom Cleverley, because if you watched his post-match interview, he talked about, these are just words, turnovers, transitions, intensity. And we hear them, but we absolutely saw them in abundance yesterday. First goal, Joe Edwards, turnover ball, ran, Peppel, Talai, goal. Second, Joe Edwards, turnover ball, run. But the one thing, Bim Peppel, when Joe Edwards won the ball, was on the halfway line. He ran that distance to finish with aplomb with the half volley. Then you look at the third goal, the recycled possession, fantastic cross. Bim Peppel, have you ever seen an Argyle forward head a ball like that? That was Mariner-esque at his best. Not many other centre forwards in the league would have scored that goal. And then you've got the fourth goal, the move down the left, again, turnover, transition, pass. And if you look at the videos from behind the goal, it was a definite push. You didn't look at it from the side view, but from behind the goal it was. And then set piece. And that set piece wasn't a fluke, because Matthias Ross talked about the blocking. And when you look at it, you can see it. And Ronnie Curtis, I mean, what's he doing in League One? That's all I can say. And absolutely the best bargain ever Argyle have bought for ridiculous. I mean, less than 100,000. What a bargain! Because he's very key to our play, because most balls from Connor Hazard are targeted to him. Look how many headers he wins on the byline. Look how many balls we win first or second time, and we play from there. And this is down to Tom Cleverley's slow transition. I mean, it's not, this is hard work on the training pitch. This isn't by accident, this result. It is a result of the way Tom and his management team have got game plans together. And he said in his post-match interview about being bold and being brave. How many managers would have been as brave as we were against clearly the top team in the division? And as soon as they started playing out of the back in the first couple of minutes, I thought, game on. Because we are rampant. And I give...
not only that, Graham, but like a couple of weeks ago, they literally conceded a goal. I thought the same thing, but a couple of weeks ago, they literally conceded a goal to Leyton Orient by trying to play out from the back and overplaying. And what's his name? Ballard nicked in and scored. So,
and to be fair, whilst we're on praise for Cleverley, the isolation of Wiradoo pressing forward from them playing out from the back, having Wiradoo right on the edge of the box, making sure, I think it was Robertson, the 18, couldn't get hold of it, and then they had to go wide to the centre backs. That just shut them down completely. They gradually worked out how to just nip it round Talai or Peppel and occasionally get it out wide, but Argyle were not going to allow them to play through them yesterday. And I think that from Tom Cleverley is genius work.
And then and whilst it was obvious, in fairness, Wes Harding was having a tough time against Tanner, and let's face it, Tanner's one of the best players in the league. And simple solution, Watts off, Soranola in front, and he never got a look in after that. So whilst it was an obvious tactical substitution, it was the right one, done at the right time.
And I haven't been
very quickly
particularly glowing off Tom Cleverley at times, but I have to say that is a substitution I don't think he would have made earlier in the season. And I think it's clear that he has learned from that, because I said at halftime, Harding needs protecting here. And, lo and behold, 45 minutes on comes Soranola. And I think that's what won us the game, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree.
That's really annoying, because I was just about to tee it up for you, Finn, to really humiliate you on your views of Tom Cleverley, but you've gone and done it yourself, so that's fine. And just very quickly, Graham, you said that you were talking about Ronan Curtis being the best bargain transfer Argyle have ever done. I said in the group chat yesterday he was the best ever bargain signing Argyle have ever made in their history. And Aaron Hocking, formerly of this seat on this podcast every week, actually pointed out to me that probably Joe Edwards on a free is probably the biggest bargain that Argyle have ever had. But certainly in terms of people we've paid money for,
not in January, not in January and season changing.
You'd have to go a long way back to find a better winter window signing.
What about Daniel Nardiello?
Yeah, moving very swiftly on. Finn, which was your favourite of the 5 goals? Which was your pick?
I mean, granted, I was in the toilet for Pepple's second, so I didn't see that.
Oh, you've done a sound down.
Yeah. So I reckon I've got to say the first, to be honest. That is an excellent finish from Talai, particularly with I don't know what defender it was on his back, but a defender on his back, and you couldn't place that any more perfectly.
Chambers, wasn't it?
Chambers, yeah. I still can't believe that man played for Arsenal a lot. But yeah, I just right in the corner. I mean, that is an unbelievable finish, and a testament to Bim and his astonishing, to be honest, how quickly he's improved with his back to goal. And yeah, it was. I saw that goal was a testament of how much we have / are improving, because again, I don't think we would have scored a goal like that even maybe 3 weeks ago, in terms of that understanding between the two, and just it just feels like as soon as one of those gets through on goal at the moment, it's going to go in. So what a place to be, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in a strange way, my favourite goal was the penalty, just because it was brilliant. It was Bim showing his versatility. We know he can hold the ball up. We know he can outmuscle centre backs. We saw it literally straight after we got the fifth. He can take the ball down and out of nothing get a shot away and put the keeper under pressure. But the way he not only turned his centre back, but beat him for pace on the outside, managed to put in a very good ball into the area as well that was right on the money. And to be fair to Darren Drysdale, who probably wouldn't be high up on my Christmas card list, he gave two pushes by Laurent Talai in the back of Callum Chambers at two separate times, one before half-time and one right at the very beginning of the second half yesterday. And the very first instance of Callum Chambers pushing Laurent Talai was the penalty. And the one thing the referee was yesterday was his consistency in the picking up of what he felt was a foul. Whether or not it was a high bar that it should have been for a game like that is debatable. But to have put in, for him to be as consistent as he was in, if I'm giving it one way, I am going to give it the other. There was no bias from him at all yesterday. Gentlemen, we must move it on because, as I say, there's so much to talk about. I could sit here for 3 hours and talk about us beating Cardiff 5-2, but we simply don't have the time. We're going to amalgamate Cardiff and Leyton Orient into one here because we're going to talk about player performances now. And obviously, there were 2 games in the week. A 3-1 victory at Leyton Orient in midweek, which had just as balmy an end to the first half as this game had. And, of course, as dominant a second half performance as what this one had. You get the choice to pick one player from both games to talk about. It's got to be the same player for both games. So I'm giving you a little bit of a challenge there. I have a funny feeling I know where Graham's going to go with the player he's going to pick. You can all probably guess which one I'm going to pick as well. So the captain's off limits. But John, you can go first.
Yeah, I will go with Alex Mitchell, if that's not taken by anybody else.
You better very quickly. You better just duck because he might come and head you out of the stream.
I do it somewhat more regularly maybe than others, but we do some usually sort of share match ratings out of 10 in the WhatsApp chat that we have. And over the years, I've rarely given players 10 out of 10. I had quite a few in the Liverpool game last year and a few in the Chelsea game. Otherwise, it's rare. You may get one or two or three every season in the league. And I gave Alex Mitchell a 10 out of 10 against Leyton Orient on Tuesday. I felt he did nothing wrong at all. And he was just on the end of every single ball into the box, headed it away. He is somebody who we've discussed before. I think even during that absolutely abysmal period when heads were down, shoulders had dropped, you had certain individuals, I think it's pretty unquestionable, not really just putting any effort in at all, to stop crosses coming into the box, things like that. I think even during that period, Mitchell could emerge with his head held high. I think I've spoken about this before. He did a couple of interviews after games early on in his Argyle tenure where he's saying, I need to look at myself in the mirror and, this piece of play or whatever was my fault. I think even after his debut at home to Leyton Orient when we lost 1-0, he did the match interview afterwards and said, it's entirely my fault because I played the guy on side to score the winning goal. I think that was harsh on himself. Honestly, we've also obviously discussed him going through, personal tragedy earlier in the season as well. And yet, even through that difficult period in both his personal life and at the club, he was, I think, one of the only ones who could really emerge with his head held high. And, since we've had this winning run, he has just grown and grown and grown. And he looks every bit as dominant as any of those centre-backs that we had during that 101 point title winning season, in my opinion. At this moment in time, I think you can maybe say he's a little less assured on the ball than the likes of Scar Wilson and Gillespie. But, I remember seeing those three players I think all on their debut on the same day at Rotherham at the beginning of the 21-22 season. And I thought these are players who cannot play the ball out from the back at all. And yet they were coached into it. So I think Mitchell, there's a possibility to develop there, no question about it. But just in terms of, I think cleverly spoken about doing the basics right. He's at the beginning of the season, we clearly weren't doing them. Now he said we are doing them to a very consistently high level. And I think Mitchell just epitomizes that, and on Tuesday night,
Can I just highlight the moment where the ball, I can't remember what minute it was. It just come out the sky, and he was watching it for about 10-15 seconds before it hit his head, and he was the only one ever getting there. It was quite a sort of a very If you wanted to stereotype Alex Mitchell, that moment would be that one.
You might want to unmute yourself, Joe.
There we go. I also just want to point out the moment where Alex Mitchell did try to play football yesterday and he got hopelessly done trying to play out from the back and then sort of put his hand up to everybody to acknowledge that it was his mistake. And from there on in, from the rest of the game, there was just no playing football from Alex Mitchell. It was like he tried to turn himself into the world's greatest centre-back because he had so much confidence and then realised that actually his game is, I'm going to see that ball, I'm either going to head it out of the stadium or I'm just going to put it into Rowe's head.
Yeah, he just epitomises what we're all about at the moment. He's relentless and he wants the ball. He's aggressive. He's on the front foot. He's going to, if a ball comes forward, he's going to go, that's mine, you're not having it. He's going to step out, he's going to head it away, he's going to clear it. He's going to come out to the touchline. I think he did a couple of times against Orient and make a tackle. I just think he's been outstanding in recent weeks and that really, sort of reached its zenith at Orient, where I gave him 10 out of 10 for that performance in my personal ratings. I don't think he was as good yesterday, actually. And Joe mentioned, there was that error that he made. I felt that there were other individuals yesterday who were more outstanding, and I'm sure we'll come on to those. But even so, Mitchell was still reached a really high level in his performance. He still, like I just said, epitomizes everything that's good about us at the moment. And yeah, it's been nice to see him get his moment in the sun a little bit. Obviously that very entertaining interview he gave after the Blackpool game last week to Argyle TV. I saw that doing the rounds on several kind of football meme accounts on Twitter in the days that followed. So yeah, nice to see him get a bit of recognition, because I think all season long he's been a bit of I don't want to say unsung hero, because there are many members of the Green Army who've rated his performances very highly, but I think at the moment we're benefiting from someone who is in really, really fine form. And I hope that we are in talks to get him down here on a permanent deal.
And should he have had another goal? Is that onside? I couldn't tell if it was onside or offside. I think it was very marginal. But the did put his leg up early.
My gut feeling watching it live was I thought it was offside. My gut feeling watching it live in the stadium was he was onside, but when I've seen the replay back, I'm not convinced it is onside, if I'm honest. I think the linesman's probably got that fair.
Good header anyway. It was just
yeah,
and he's added he's added that goal
and good strength.
And he scored at Blackpool with a great finish. He then nearly scored for the one that ended up being the second goal for Peppel. I think he had a go at a header at Leyton Orient that went over the bar, I think, early on. He's always carried that threat, and it's been a bit surprising he's not scored more goals for us, I guess. But that part of his game seems to have come on leaps and bounds. Even from a fairly good start. So I saw in the comments just quickly. I'm going to respond to that, saying limitations as a player. Is he the sort of player we want to be signing if we have championship aspirations? I do think he has limitations. Again, I think those are coachable. But I think he also, again, obviously, if we do manage to go up, which is going to be a huge ask from here, but I think is possible. Maybe we're going to be looking at recruiting from a different pool. I think if we're in League One, for me, it's a no-brainer, as we've seen what he can do at this level. I think even from the Championship, you need players at the very least in your squad who are not just reliable. They're going to play at least 7 out of 10 for you every single week. Footballers who do the basics well, but players who are good characters. Who are leaders, who are popular.
Dan Scar got a lot of stick when he came up to the Championship. Yeah, when we didn't have Dan Scar in the squad, we missed him. So
and he came back in at the end of that season under Jusnep and Nanskaville and was absolutely magnificent in several of those games towards the back end when we got some absolutely crucial clean sheets that kept us up. So I think personally, I think even if we go up, we should be looking to do that one. But certainly, if we're in League One, which is of course the most likely scenario at this point, then we should definitely look to get it done.
I'm pretty sure I heard yesterday as well a certain rendition of a song saying "If you throw a brick at him," and I'm pretty sure Alex Mitchell's name was attributed to that one. I thought it might have been a little bit too early to go for that. And certainly the ending to that song, it was almost definitely too early for the Devonport end to be singing "We're on our way to the Championship," but that's an argument for a podcast later on in the month. Finn, why don't you go next? Because as I say, I predict that mine and Graham's might be quite easy to decide who we're going to go for.
Yeah, I'm not going to go for someone obvious at all. I just think
You're going to talk about Connor Durbridge.
I am talking about Connor, Connor Hazard, who I thought probably had his maybe his best game of the season for us yesterday. I mean, you can debate how much you want about how much you knew about it and all that, but that save from Kellerman from about 2 yards out is phenomenal. I mean, just to even have the instinct to get your hand up and then tip that over the bar. And if we have got any aspirations of, making the playoffs, the extra 5% he gives us in terms of the shots that he says compared to Luca Ashby-Hammond will be a huge reason why. I also wanted to highlight him because I don't think he was particularly good on Tuesday, but in general, his performances have been improving, and he is a player who at the start of the season, I sort of questioned his commitment to the cause. I mean, there was lots of sort of rumours about him in January going even, but I do think, to be fair to him, I don't think I would have made him captain at the time. But that happened. And to be fair to him, I think he has sort of put that to the back of his head until at least the end of the season. And he's now buying in. And so are lots of the players. And I think that's one of the main reasons why we are where we are at the moment, because we found a system that works with the players that we've got. I mean, I was critical about Tom Cleverley saying that we didn't have the players and that we needed more. And I thought, well, why don't you try changing your system? And to be fair, he's learned about that and changed the system, and we're sort of reaping the rewards. So I just wanted to touch on Connor Hazard, because I think he is a prime example of how we've evolved from, say, August to February. In terms of the way that we are now performing.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That save yesterday from point blank range is just it's reactions, isn't it? It's lightning reactions, and it's what should be a national first choice goalkeeper. So over to you, Michael O'Neill. If you want to keep playing that idiot up in Blackpool, then you carry on.
Hopefully he doesn't get to the World Cup though, because Wales will beat them before that happens.
Yeah, well, let's leave all that talk for later on, Finn. You don't want to be left with egg on your face. Graham, which player do you want to talk about from the last two games?
Oh, that's straightforward. Ronan Curtis. I think he's played 10 games, including the EFL Trophy game or Virtue Trophy, and I think he's got 10 or 11 assists and a goal. It's remarkable stats, but more than that, it's the difference he's made to our team, and I think he is the difference. He gives us width. He gives us control. His work rate is second to none, particularly playing in front of Joe Edwards, which means covering from Joe. If Joe, as he is wont to do, inverts and gets up the pitch, Ronan doesn't, he's aware of his responsibilities should that happen. But set piece delivery, we haven't had a player that can deliver a set piece, particularly a corner, that I can ever recall.
The closest I can recall is George Cooper, but even he couldn't put corners.
Yeah, and possibly Graham Carey as well. I mean, for me, he's the best at it since Graham Carey. George Cooper probably didn't do it for long enough to sort of give him the reputation. He got injured and that was that, unfortunately. But Ronan Curtis's delivery, but he's also 6'2", wins the ball in the air. Look how many headers he wins. He's not afraid to get stuck in. He leaves his foot in, which is, I think he's only got booked once, which is quite a testament to his skill in convincing referees he's the innocent party all the time, but he's not. But if he continues as he is, I mean, what have we got him for 2.5-year contract, or what were Paul Vale doing? We knew he had ability from his Portsmouth days, but he's exceeded every expectation, and he's an exciting player to watch. And it's not just his set piece, to his crosses as well. So both games, Orient, where he, of course, scored, and that was, he saw what was going to happen. He read the keeper might make a mistake, and it was in the back of the net before even the commentator on the Sky realised it was a goal. It was so clinical. I mean, as much as I would love to say Lauren Tulai, I am going to give it to Ronan Curtis.
Yeah, I can't argue anything there. What I'd love to know what the little data chip in his vest top would say the amount of distance he covers in a game. Yesterday, I genuinely thought he was going to run himself into the ground yesterday. He was covering at the end of the game. He covered so many yards. It was ridiculous. Before I go on, I do want to give an honourable mention to the midfield too, because they've been much ridiculed this season, including by us on this podcast, by other podcasts, just by Argyle fans in general. They have had two outstanding games this week, in particular yesterday, and I thought it was Tom Cleverley touched on this after the game in the press conference. Chris Errington made the comment to him, and you kind of felt Tom Cleverley smile and beam at the question because he knew what it was about. There was a really nice moment yesterday when Wiradoo was substituted, and normally this happens to people who score or who assist. Brendan Wiradoo received a standing ovation from all sides of the ground, including the Barn Park where the little section of Argyle fans were. The Cardiff fans certainly weren't applauding him, but everybody of Argyle persuasion yesterday were on their feet for Graham Carey. Graham Carey for Brendan Wiradoo. Graham's got Graham Carey into my mind. That's what that is. I'm going on about Brendan Wiradoo, of course, who was outstanding yesterday. There was the incredibly funny moment where he carried the ball 50 yards upfield and then overran it and gave it away. And what was great about that was he didn't just put his hand up to apologise to his teammates. He actually raised his hand to all four sides of the stadium to apologise to the fan base. But what a moment yesterday when he was taken off and he received that standing ovation, as Tom cleverly said, that just shows how far everything's come since the start of the year. But I only want to talk about one man. Joseph Robert Edwards. I genuinely, I don't know how many more superlatives you can throw at our captain, because 269 appearances now in all competitions, either starting or substituting. And he never ceases to amaze me with how he's able to keep going. His professionalism to stay as fit as he is. He's had some really bad injuries in recent seasons, and he is still covering just as much ground as anybody else in the team. The second goal yesterday, where, as John alluded to, where he went on that lung-bursting run after robbing Willock's pocket with the ball, to then travel all the way down the field and to have the composure to square it to Bim Pepper when it mattered, was just unbelievable. Even being part of the move for the first goal as well, his part he played in that, he is just absolutely astonishing. The guy is 35. He has played all but about 180 minutes since the start of December. Just let that sink in. He's played so many lots of 90 minutes.
I'd also like to say that I think he's like, I've said this many a time on many different podcasts in many different seasons. He is the most clutch player I've ever seen, like, for Plymouth Argyle. Like, when we start playing well, he is usually one of the reasons why. Like, he can be, like, I'll go back to the 101 point season where he didn't score a goal for the entire season, and then, like, in the last, like, 4 matches or whatever, I don't have the actual stats, but he scored against, like, Cambridge, he scored against Shrewsbury, and he scored another one as well. And it's just
Port
like
Vale.
Port Vale. Yeah, Port Vale. How could I forget Port Vale? And then he scored against Hull to keep us up. It's just like the guy. He's like in my top 3 players, and I've got, you know, personal reasons for the first one, but my top 3 Argyle players ever. And when he doesn't play for Plymouth Argyle anymore, it's going to be a very sad day.
It is,
but I do hope I hope that we're looking at retiring him into a coaching pathway soon, though.
For those of you who aren't aware, this is a joke, a long-running joke that's been going on in the Green and White podcast group chat on WhatsApp. Now, I have been party to this, and I do want to put this on record, that I have had negative thoughts in months gone by about whether or not Joe Edwards would be able to sustain it anymore. But he has just put pay to any of those thoughts in my mind. Every week he is going out and he is surprising me. And it should be the easiest conversation that anybody has inside Plymouth Argyle to extend his contract for another 12 months. That you know, it shouldn't even be a debate whether or not we offer him the deal, because as Finn says, it's not just what he offers on the pitch. Having him on the bench, if a game is tight or we're behind or the crowd's a bit edgy, the lift he gives the crowd, let alone the players on the pitch, is just incredible. And he is, for me, in my opinion, I know this is a debate that's been going on online and on social media. For me, he's the greatest captain that I've seen, certainly in my time for Plymouth Argyle. Whether he's the greatest captain of all time, that will be up for debate for many, many years to come. But the important thing is he is in that argument. And he will, I hope, hit 300 games for this football club one day. Hopefully it will happen. And the one thing I do hope, very quickly, just rounding off my thing on Joe Edwards, I said in the group chat today I didn't want any waffling because there's so much to get through, and I am waffling about Joe Edwards. The one thing I do hope, because this is a very pertinent point now, because his contract is up at the end of the season, and there will obviously be a conversation that's had. If there is a school of thought that Joe Edwards is not going to stay at Plymouth Argyle beyond the season, which I can't fathom, frankly, but whenever that conversation does happen, please, can Plymouth Argyle give him a moment in front of the fans before his contract expires? Well,
not 10 years. So he's
Oh,
not.
right.
because if you go back through time, so many players have given a tremendous service to Plymouth Argyle, and they just, their contract expires. You don't know whether or not they're going to sign one or not, and they just leave in the summer without that moment at home park. When it happens, hopefully in years to come, please can it be done in a way that everybody can get into home park and have that moment with Joe, because it's the least he deserves. This football club owes him the world, because Joe Edwards has given us absolutely everything he has, and he will continue to do so. And I cannot wait for Joe Edwards to be the man to not only take us back to the Championship once.
He's going to score.
But to
He's going to
lead-
score the Pizza Cup winning goal, Joe. That's what's going to happen this season.
He hasn't scored yet.
Shut it down.
I know.
Shut it
That's
down
why
my
he-
spine. But look, there's the one thing that's missing off his resume now. He's won a league title. He's won a promotion. He's bloody hell. He's even managed the team. The only thing's missing now is lifting a national trophy, and that might happen in the weeks to come. But let's hope and pray that Joe Edwards has many, many a game to go. We've got to give him another contract just so he can get to 300 games, for Christ's sake. If he wasn't injured so much last year, he would have got it this year. Right, moving it on, because that's enough of this weekend's game, as much as we'd love to sit here and tap, because there are two games we've got to preview now. The first of which I am contractually obliged to preview because it is a game involving Plymouth Argyle, and it is a competitive, it's a recognised competition. Plymouth Argyle go away to Luton Town on Tuesday night in the quarter-final of the Virtu Trophy. It's live on Sky Sports Plus. It's on at 7 o'clock. Gentlemen, I know the three of you are all very excited about the prospect of this one, so I'm just going to leave the next 10 minutes of the show to you three.
I genuinely am, actually. I'll be there.
I don't doubt it.
Got my ticket. Always enjoy a trip to the Kenny. And maybe Jack Wilshere will have been restrained enough to be back in the dugout by the time the game kicks off on Tuesday at 7 p.m. And those who don't know what I'm talking about should look up any footage of the end of their game yesterday. Pretty extraordinary scenes at Kenilworth Road. But yeah, I think, it's going to be, I mean, it's sort of how tough it is depends on how seriously Luton take it. Obviously, the fact they went to Swindon and lost in the last round, I don't know exactly what team they put out, but that's not a very good result. I mean, we know Luton are pretty poor away from home at the moment, but going to a team in the league below and losing is...
You're telling us in this highly reputable competition that everybody should love and embrace that we are playing a team that have already been beaten in the knockout stage?
Yeah.
How can that be?
Well, obviously Swindon beat them fair and poxy square, but they've subsequently the authorities decided that wasn't the case, and it's going to be Luton. So yeah, I don't exactly know what their stance is on this competition. I think they're now ahead of us in the table by a point or on goal difference, but they're pretty much level pegging with us at this stage. So,
which is bonkers, by the way.
Well, I think that it sort of makes the conversation the same for both teams now. Whereas a few weeks ago, you might have said Luton are the ones who are more likely to rest key players for a playoff push, whereas we might see this as the only chance of doing anything this season because the playoffs are too far off. But now we're pretty much equidistant from it, and I think we have a real chance of getting into them, and so to Luton. So, and at the moment, by the way, I think we're a much better team than they are. So I think probably we have the bigger chance on current form of the two. So it might well be that Luton also see this as an opportunity to get some silverware and make some money for the club. It might be that they're less bothered about it. I think it's very clear that we are very invested in this at this point. Obviously, we've described the finances as perilous, or whatever the word was that was used at the fans forum before Christmas. But getting to Wembley actually would be an earner for us, and we're only a couple of games away. I think we've got every chance to do it. I also want to sort of return to a favorite Sam Down quote, which is winning is a habit. Winning is a habit. And I think actually, as much as we mocked cleverly for saying that he wanted to, keep some positive momentum going in the cup earlier in the season when we were so poor in the league, and rightly so, it wasn't a substitute for good league form. And some of his comments on that, I think, were a little bit tone deaf at the time. We are in a position now where I think we just look so relentless that you want to keep that going. I think another good performance on Tuesday night breeds confidence going into Saturday again, whereas going there and not taking it so seriously, I think, allow a little bit of complacency in. You never know how that can spill over. So I think both from the point of view that we're actually fairly close to getting to Wembley now, which I think is worth doing, whatever you think of the, well, not whatever you think of the tournament. Obviously, if you absolutely hate the tournament, you don't want us to go to Wembley. But I think even skeptics, some skeptics of the tournament, think that actually having that day out for the city and the little earner that it will be and the chance of silverware is a nice thing. And we're close enough now, I think, for it to be worth taking that seriously. And yeah, and I think, it's a game against a divisional rival, and psychologically, if we can go up against a team that are pretty much where we are in the league at the moment and beat them, I think we've got right. Well, it would be the third time this season as well to beat them. So I think that could have a good impact. So I actually am looking forward to it. I think it'll be a fun test. It'll be interesting to see what team we play. My strong hunch is that we are now at a position where we're going to play our first team in this competition, which I think is not going to be good news for Luca Ashby-Hammond. I think I imagine and strongly hope we will be playing Connor Hazard. Obviously, if there are players who have sort of fitness issues that mean they can't manage 3 games in a week, then it doesn't make sense to play them in this one and then have to rest them at the weekend. So that would be the one exception to that. But I think we're looking in a fairly good place fitness-wise. So I think it'll be a strong team, maybe not unchanged from the Cardiff game, but I think it'll be a team that's well capable of going out and winning the game. And I hope we do.
Finn, what team would you pick?
I mean, so if you asked me this 3 weeks ago, I'd have said I really want to win this game because we've got nothing else to play for this season. But now I don't really care. And having said that, if we win this game, I think we go on to win the competition. That's just, and by the way, I said this in October for no reason at all that we win this competition, and I felt that way the whole season for some reason. So, but I would literally play. I mean, I would play Connor Hazard. If we got any injuries that impacted our season in this game, I'd be very upset. So I'd play Amici and Dale up front. I don't really care. Like, I think we're playing so well in the league at the moment that I do think that we can go on for, and I'm sure we'll come to it in a later podcast, but like, I do think we carry on playing this way. We've got a decent chance of making playoffs. And look, given that we said, like, even coming into the season, even if you forget about what's happened this season, playoffs being, we said at the start it would be a minimum requirement, and given all of the chopping and changing of those minimum requirements that have occurred, I think to get playoffs at this point would be amazing. And I do think it's a realistic possibility at this point. So change it as much as you can, but with still enough to go out and win the game. Because to be honest, Luton are a team which I haven't been watching them, but looking at the scenes at the end of the game yesterday, I'm not sure, are they playing for Jack Wilshere anymore? I don't know. So if they're not, then doesn't matter what team they put out, they probably won't put in 100%.
Very quickly on the point about whether or not we'll make the playoffs and whether or not Luton can still make the playoffs. Just having a look at Opta's percentage predictions that they update obviously after every game. We have a 5 percentage point greater chance of making the playoffs according to Opta than what Luton do. And that will obviously have factored in points per game and fixture difficulty between now and the end of the season and things. So according to Opta, we are in a better position than Luton. So.
But I think it's also about form. I mean, we're just better than them, aren't we, at the moment? This is not tempting fate. Anything can happen in any individual game. Tuesday is a cup competition, so it's quite possible that I'm wrong and we play a change team and some of the fluency is gone and they take it really seriously and they beat us. I'm absolutely not, before anyone clips this up, saying that can't happen at all. But at the moment, they look like a team who are pretty good at home, albeit had a poor result at home on Saturday, and dreadful away. I mean, their away form is really, really poor. We look unstoppable. Like I said earlier, I think we look like the best team in the league at the moment. Now, obviously, that's huge. You've got to caveat that hugely, right? Like, obviously, we could stop playing like the best team in the league. This could turn out to be just a particularly kind of purple patch run of form. And while I think we can now put relegation fears to bed, I don't think it's necessarily the case that we can expect to continue playing with this level of intensity for, week in and week out. But pretty much since the second game of the year, we have been looking really, really good for at least half of games, like really, really good in most of them, and have had injuries to contend with. And I think where we've had adverse results, it has been injuries and sort of coming up against other teams that are right up there as well. This last week, if we can maintain anything like that level, we're going to win many more games than we're not going to win between now and the end of the season. So it's about trend lines. Yeah, Luton and us, if you look at the table, we're about equally placed, but they look like I wouldn't say they look like they're going in a downward trajectory particularly, but they don't look like they're necessarily going upwards either. They just seem to be about, that their performances seem to be about where they are at the moment. We are on a meteoric upward trajectory if we continue to play like we are. Again, we have to continue playing like that, and it's not a given, but I'm not seeing a team in us at the moment that looks like a team that's sort of like outperforming its data or is in just kind of a good patch of form where everything's going in. I'm seeing a team that has sustainably improved and looks really, really serious. So that's why I'm feeling very, very bullish at the moment about us getting in the playoffs. I think we will. I think if we continue to play like this, I don't think there's much doubt about it, actually, because I think we look like we can beat any team in this league playing. We didn't even need to play as well as we did to beat Cardiff yesterday. We won with 3 goals to spare in the end. We could have played a little bit worse than we did and still won the game. Leyton Orient, we could have played worse and won the game. Blackpool, we could have played a lot worse and won the game. We are performing to insanely high levels right now. Again, yeah, we have to continue it, but yeah.
I'm sure if we are outperforming our data, or there's some underlying data somewhere, I'm sure a national podcast will tell us all about it.
Yeah, and they say we're not, and they're right. We're not.
Yeah, they will tell us in the coming week. Graham, final thoughts then on this fabulous occasion on Tuesday night, the game that everybody will be watching in the nation, and your prediction.
Well, we've moved in a few weeks from hope to expectation. And when you move to expectation, there's a danger of complacency, confidence, overconfidence. So what we've got to do is perform like we've been performing and not think that we have to do it. We've got to work to do it. And if we do that, we'll win. But, like Cardiff yesterday, they were very confident. They would never have dreamt of being hammered in the way that they were. They were confident in their ability. They come on a terrific run. So you can't have complacency. You've got to start well, keep the intensity going. And if Tom Cleverley can drill that into the team on Tuesday and on Saturday, then we'll win both. But we can't just believe, I won't call it hype. There's a belief now that we are a very decent team. That's not just held by the players and the management, it's the fan base as well. And complacency is our biggest danger. And I just want to make sure that we perform to the levels of intensity that we have been. And if we do that, few teams can live with us, let alone Luton, who are...
It's a very good point that Graham makes about the players believe that we're a good team now, and you can see that by the way that we were immediately disappointed, by Cardiff's quick response to us going 2-0 up yesterday, because I think 2 months ago we would have conceded that, heads would have dropped, whereas all of the players were kind of like, come on, let's go again, and lo and behold, we scored 4 minutes later or whatever.
Score predictions for...
Sorry, Judge. The other point is Jack Wilshere is clearly under pressure and the fans are on his back. I don't know quite what happened. You didn't explain what happened post-match.
Oh, well, yes. just quickly, there's a video of the fans, giving a very loud boo and some abuse coming from the home end, and Wilshere comes over and says something and has to be pulled away by a player I understand to be like an 18-year-old kid on loan and pulled down the tunnel, which isn't a great look for anyone involved.
So that's
kid.
And their captain Cal Naismith also had to be pulled back from verbals with a supporter as well.
So that's always toxic atmospheres are always difficult to predict. As I say, we've got to be on our mettle, and if we are, we'll win. And
that's the other very quick thing about this Virtue Trophy run. If we do keep motoring towards the playoffs, I really don't want this Virtue Trophy final to get in the way of our playoff push, because that's the most important.
Well, let's not forget, Finn, it didn't get in the way of the League One title the other year, did it? So let's get some score predictions then, because I am desperate to talk about a proper game. Graham?
2-0 win.
Finn?
2-1 loss, because we'll rotate.
John?
3-0 win.
Very good. Saturday, massive game. We're travelling to Yorkshire in the next instalment in Sky Bet League One. We are taking on Rotherham United at the New York Stadium, or whatever the bloody hell they call it these days. Rotherham United, who are in turmoil, it's safe to say. A 1-0 lead at half-time yesterday against Doncaster Rovers in a crucial Yorkshire derby. Squandered in the second half. I'm sure everybody by now will have seen the goal that former Argyle loanee Cameron Dawson was a part of, the goal that essentially won Doncaster the tie. They are in real trouble, Rotherham. They've got a game on Tuesday night in a competition that matters. They are away at Bradford City in another huge Yorkshire derby. Gents, Rotherham are in a pretty worrying situation for them. We're obviously going there full of confidence off the back now of 3 successive victories. Our next 3 games come up against teams in 23rd, 17th and 21st place in the league. This has a big feeling about it, in my opinion. I think I don't know what you think, John, but a lot of what I think about Saturday's game actually hinges on what happens for Rotherham on Tuesday night, because if they're on the end of another poor result and Matt Hamshaw is relieved of his duties, there is then, of course, on Saturday, the potential for a lift and the place to have renewed feeling about it. I'm sure Neil Warnock will probably be ringing his good friend Mr. Stewart up at Rotherham, just asking if he needs a helping hand. I mean, how do you feel ahead of Saturday's game?
Well, is it rumoured that Hamshaw is on the brink, or is this just based on? Well, because I find this surprising, because he should have been sacked.
He's an utter fraud.
About 150 times over at this point. He's doing a shocking job. Has done a shocking job dating back to last season. All of this season is hugely underperformed. So, obviously managers can't run away from it forever, I guess. But he seems to have been given way more backing there than you would think. I mean, obviously coming from a club.
He's a local lad as well.
Yeah, well, coming from a club that's also backed their manager this season when many people thought that was a bad idea. It's not a guarantee that he won't turn it around, of course, but yeah, doesn't really look like he deserves a ton of confidence at the moment. So we'll see. Yeah, I mean, I feel sort of nervous about it either way, actually. I think that they have better players than their league position suggests. Obviously Sam Nombe is still there, right? I think he scored on Saturday. I think he is a player who is too good for them. I think or too good to be playing for a club in their league position. Obviously, the league is still really congested as well. They're down in the bottom 4. I'm not exactly sure how many points they have off the top of my head, but
I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was League One and League Two comparison that I heard being made on the Not the Top 20 podcast the other day, and I think they were saying I think it was League Two, right? There were as of before this last round of games, an astonishing number of clubs on a point a game average or fewer. Whereas in League One, it's only Port Vale who have less than a point a game average, which is, not a complete disgrace. I mean, we got a point a game average in the Championship last year and went down, but over a course of a season, I don't think we embarrassed ourselves with that level of points. So there aren't really terrible teams in this league. Even Port Vale actually look like they've picked up a bit, I think, under John Brady, and obviously they're quite far adrift at the bottom or worse. So, I don't think there are any easy games, and that is like a cliche thing to say, but I think it is true in this league. Obviously, we were down where Rotherham are now a couple of months ago, so look how quickly we've turned things around. I don't think it's beyond the wit of man that they could, with Hamshaw or without him, but probably more likely without him, turn this around and maybe not go on quite as good a run as we've done, but pull themselves out of it. So it's going to be a tough game. And yeah, I think that obviously we now are going to have a target on our backs. That being said, I'm just going to revert to what I said before, and I really don't want this to come across as like complacency or arrogance on my part. I know that's not what Graham was suggesting. He was talking about the players, because I really do, I completely understand and accept that football is a strange game. Things can turn around on a dime. I think if we perform like we've played in the last week consistently, and for the reasons that I laid out, I believe that we are playing in a sustainable way. I don't think this is a flash in the pan or we're running hot. I think this looks like an approach to winning games that is sustainable. We will win because we are better than them. Because we at the moment we look too good for almost anyone in this league, and I think that certainly applies to a team in the bottom four. And Blackpool should be the template for this game. We went up there and we killed the game by halftime. We just killed it. And I think if we go there and we play with that intensity from the start next weekend, I think it's the likelihood is, unless we're unlucky, that they will just not be able to live with that, new manager or not, them sort of playing reasonably well or not. And we will probably score, and we'll probably score again based on our recent form. And then we'll just go on and win the game. Like, I think I'm not just saying this, this has high potential to look stupid in a few weeks' time. I totally accept that. But I really feel like I'm not just saying these things because we're playing well. I didn't feel like this even in the 101 season. We were a very, very good team that year. And obviously over the course of a whole season, miles better than this Argyle team. And I want to make that clear. But I never really felt like going into games, I never felt as confident as I feel right now going into games. And it just quickly to respond to Graham's point about complacency, I completely agree with it. And obviously, I'm not on the inside of training or in the inside of the players' heads or anything. For me, looking from the outside, it looks like we have built this success on the attitude that Graham describes. It looks like we are a team that, unlike Cardiff this season, understand, because they've done so well, we are a team that really painfully understands that if you don't do the basics well, we know what can happen to you. So I think this is a run of form that is completely constructed on non-negotiable. This is a team that will work hard and they will go out and do the basics, and they are scarred with the knowledge of what will happen if you don't do that. And if you listen to interviews with players and with Cleverly, the noises coming out are, we're not taking this for granted. We're not gonna, we're just gonna look at the next game. I think Talai did an interview. Yeah, again, footballers are media trained to say that, but there's something about the performances and the way the players are carrying themselves at the moment. It's not like we're winning games and they're kind of bouncing over to the away end and they're all acting like we've won the league. There's a nice bit of celebration that feels proportionate to what we've just done, and then they're back down the tunnel. It feels like we are in that kind of tunnel vision mentality at the moment. So, of course, yeah, we could get complacent, we could get unlucky, we could get injuries. Until I see evidence of that, though, I feel like this is a team that I would just bet on them to win every single week at the moment. So I think we'll win. So, and I don't think we need to worry about what Rotherham are going to do with their manager or anything of that nature. I think if we play like we are playing at the moment, doing the things that are in our control, we are going to win almost every single week if we play like that. So I have no reason to believe that won't be the case again. But it'll be, it's not, it's probably not going to be an easy game, though. We have to earn the right to go and do that, and obviously all those things are still true. So we'll see. But
yeah, I kind of feel at this point, before I let the two lads give their predictions for this one, that we should advise people, please do gamble responsibly. Don't bet on Argyle every week, because it will not end well.
Metaphorically, to be clear, because I also
yes.
am not a financial gambling man at all. I just, as a general principle.
Yeah, I'm not either. It goes totally against me. Finn, Graham, is there anything else you wanted to add about Rotherham? I mean, we assume that it will just be essentially the same 11 that played yesterday will go forward to the game, providing there are no issues on Tuesday night. Lord help Plymouth Argyle if we have to take off a load of players injured on Tuesday night. I will probably have an aneurysm. What's your
there might be. I mean, I would expect to start with the Rotherham game, start with the same team that we started with against Cardiff. I think Caleb Watts seems to only have 60 minutes in him at best because of the intensity of the work that he does. And then Matti Soranola is a perfect replacement to hold the fort, came on at half-time. So I expect that team. I mean, we have had injuries, John. We've had Joe Rawls and Herbie Kane, and everyone thought, well, we're not going to recover from that. And
well, I'm thinking of one injury in particular to a certain player, but we've discussed this in the past, so I won't go back into that. But
so, in terms of prediction for Rotherham, same 2-0 win.
Any additional thoughts?
Yeah, just a couple. So I think, like, if you look at Arsenal, right, this season, right? They're top of the league. I think they've played pretty rubbish in a lot of their games, but they're very good at set pieces. And we have become so good at set pieces. I think we could play to about 50% of our capacity at the moment and come away with a 1-0 or 2-1 win because we're good at set pieces. So I also do think that the next 3 games, Rotherham, Wigan and Doncaster, will be the real test of whether we do have playoff credentials. Because if we do, we'll get 7 points out of 9 and we'll be very close to the playoffs. If we get less than 7 points out of 9, then obviously we'll just drop off into mid-table again. So I think we will win. We'll win Rotherham, and I think I'm going to go not a great performance, but I think people will be encouraged because we won't have played very well and we'd have come away with a win. So 2-1 to Argyle.
John?
3-0 again.
Very good. Should caveat this by saying my away record is terrible, and this is an away game I'm going to. But I think I'm finally going to break my long losing run. I bloody hope I am. Anyway,
How long is it, Jack? How long is it?
It's long enough, Graham. I still remember
years?
Panucci. I still remember Panucci Kamara wheeling away in celebration. Just let that sink in. But yes, I think that this will be the one that ends it. It should be mentioned, I was at Bristol Rovers when we were 2-0 up and Josh Coburn came on and ruined my afternoon. And there have been other games I've been to where we have been leading in away games and not quite seen it out. So yes, let's hope and pray that this is the one that works. I think this will be a 3-0 kind of afternoon. Not necessarily a 3-0 where it's Blackpool, it's all over inside 30 minutes. It might be a sort of cagey, edgy game. The sort of edginess of the home side might wear off onto the performance and we might struggle just to get a foothold. But when we do, we will brush them to one side. Right, let's rattle through some questions because thank you to everyone who's put up with the issues we've had on X tonight. The podcast will be available in its entirety on YouTube and all your audio platforms if you haven't caught it yet already. And we will tweet out the link to tonight's episode. There's just been a few problems getting interactions on X, but a load of questions came in at the very start of the night, which was very good. So we're going to rattle through them now. Let's go on to Graham. You can answer this because with all due respect, you're a tiny bit older than Finn. Was this, talking about yesterday's game against Cardiff, was this one of the best overall complete team performances in a long while when you compare it to some of the great wins in promotion seasons gone by?
Yeah, if anybody's read what I posted on Passotti, they would know that I was advocating as an all-round team performance. This was, well, certainly one of the best, and I actually can't remember a better all-round team performance. I'm not talking about match outcome because of the importance of the game. I'm talking about every player playing at his best or near to his best that you could expect. And that every element of our game, we were at our best. And I haven't seen, even in the 1-on-1 season, some said about the Norwich game. If you remember Norwich game, we were 2-0 up and then we got 2 quick goals just before half time. But the second half, we weren't as relentless. The point John made, the Cardiff game, although we were 3-2 up, I agree. The second half performance was even better. One of our best ever second half performances against the top team in the league. A 90-minute performance, which is something that we rarely see. I mean, there was a 6-3, we beat Leeds quite a few years ago, 4-0 Bristol City, but that was a promotion outcome. 3-1 Colchester possibly is the nearest in the 96 playoff semi-final. That's possibly the nearest complete team performance I can compare it with. But for me, I can't think of a better one.
I mean, John, you've already answered this. Exile Seagull asked on YouTube, is pushing for the playoffs now the aim? Has to be, isn't it? We just dismantled the league's best team.
And look, we're 6 points off, I think, and Huddersfield have.
We've got a game in hand over Huddersfield.
Yeah, and we've got to play them.
Who's that game in hand against?
Wigan away.
Wigan away, yeah.
Yeah. So, and like what are the other teams that are in between us and there now? It's Stevenage, who I think could not to be trifled with, but generally
Wickham.
Wickham.
Yeah, Stevenage, Wickham, and Reading, I think, right, are the three between us and the playoffs. The three good teams, but they're not teams that I'm scared of, and I don't think the vibe around any of those teams is as good as it is around us right now.
And we've still got to play. We still got to play two of them as well.
We've still got to play two of them. Obviously, we've already taken
Huddersfield as well.
Yeah, and Huddersfield, right? Yeah. And like Bolton are third, and they're 12 points ahead of us, I believe. We have a game in hand on Bolton, I think, and we've got to play them. So that could be 6 points off the team who are currently in third. Now, that's a little bit of a false statement in terms of, we shouldn't be expecting to finish third because the two teams who are behind Bolton have 2 games in hand on Bolton, I believe. So I think both of those are probably on points per game are either already ahead of Bolton or have the opportunity to make it so. I could be getting that wrong, so I've not got the table in front of me, but I think that's how it sits. I don't think Bolton have looked very convincing in recent weeks. They've done, they're a Steven Schumacher team. We know what those are. They're relentless and they'll keep going to the 90th minute and they'll get late goals, and they've had quite a few late wins. They don't look like they're playing like we're playing at the moment. So, if we could win our game in hand and we beat them, you're only 6 points off a team that I think are pretty definitely going to finish in the playoffs, and all that takes is them slipping up a couple of times and us gaining a couple of wins on them. I mean, there's enough games left. Look, it would be... I was sort of discussing this in the chat yesterday. I posited that there was a chance we could finish even higher than 6th if we keep playing like this. I think Dan Ellard calculated that based on probabilities, that would require us to win 13 of 15 games. That's probably not going to happen. But it's not out of the question. And I think that,
Well, while you're there, John, while you're there and on that tangent, Scott McCarthy asks on YouTube, with the 13 games remaining in the form we're currently on, do you see us getting 27 points from the remaining 39 available, which is 9 wins from the final 13 games?
Is it 13 games to go? I thought we had a couple more than that, but it could be.
No,
13. So we played 33.
I played 33.
Okay. So 11 of 13 then, sorry, not 13 and 15. Yeah, look, that's going to be tough. But I think the return we need to get 6th is very doable. And I think the 4 teams ahead of us, I think, are not as good as us. Yeah, Huddersfield have a bit of a head start on us now. We're going to have to try and catch that up. But after a very good start under their new manager, Liam Manning, they've not looked great for the last few games. When they obviously won with Ryan Hardy scoring the winning goal on Saturday in a Yorkshire derby against Barnsley. But the games prior to that, they had a couple of poor results after initially having a little winning run. Luton, again, as we've discussed, their roundabout as they don't look good away from home. I think Barnsley actually are not too far off us on points per game because they've played a couple fewer than us, but I believe they've also only won 5 or 6 games since the first month or two of the season or something crazy like that. So that they've not, we're looking at a clutch of teams where it's really, really tight and anything could happen, but we're the team that is in the best form of those and looks the best of those at this moment in time. Now that could change again, of course, but for the reasons I've amply laid out, I would rather be in our position than any of those other teams, bar Huddersfield, because I would rather have the 6 points in hand. So maybe they should probably be favoured over us, maybe slightly at the moment, just from a sort of statistical point of view. But I think I'd rather be in our position than any of the other teams in that playoff hunt. And Huddersfield, it's in our hands to overtake them, or at least to draw level on points with them, because again, we play them and we have a game in hand. So it's in our gift, and I think we absolutely should go for it as long as it's mathematically possible, and it very much is at the moment.
Yeah, no, it's a long way out. Last night I was so pumped after the game. I did a bit of analysis on, I know we're 13 games away, but the run-ins that each team around us has got to get into the playoffs, because I was just interested to see how it goes. From 6th to 12th, so from Huddersfield to Peterborough, who are 12th, we have the second easiest run-in on paper of those teams between 6th and 12th. Only Peterborough, who are actually behind us on league positions as we sit here now, have an easier run-in than us, but they are 1 point further behind us. So it's all very interesting, and that is a changing landscape that will change every week. Graham, just very quickly on this one, because we just got a couple more to go, then we're done. Exiled Seaglass, another one. Cardiff seems to be targeting Harding quite a bit in the first half, obviously, because Watts is such an attacking left-sided player. How close do you think we are to seeing Mackenzie start? I mean, that might be a possibility for Tuesday, isn't it?
Yeah, with Harding at right back and giving Joe a rest, that's a possibility. With Joe on the bench to come on if necessary. I mean, there's been a few opportunities where I thought Mackenzie could come on, but he hasn't. And I don't think there was an opportunity on Saturday. He could have come on and given Joe the time to get off the pitch before the end and get rightly the applause of the whole stadium. But I think we've done too many subs by then. So
yeah,
just quickly, like, this is completely unrelated, but talking about players to come back after injury and stuff. Where's Aseni?
he is fit. He's just a victim of Talarin Peppel's fault.
I just found it a bit strange that Amici and Dale came on instead of Aseni yesterday.
Well, Aseni wasn't on the bench. He couldn't come on yesterday.
Was he not? Okay,
no. But there was a question to be asked. I mean, I asked this question on my walk down to the ground yesterday. Could we not have left A, Amici, or B, Dale off the bench to give us that other striking option?
He seems to have a weird
Aseni
obsession over Dale, though. That's the thing.
I do wonder whether, again, Aseni might feature on the bench on Tuesday night to get him some minutes, because he did allude in the press conference after the game that Aseni's a little bit frustrated, and rightly so, because before his injury, he had found form and was beginning to look like a decent player at this level, isn't he? Finn, this is one that's perfect for you. And it's from Andrew Thomas. What's your opinion on the reason of the unbelievable improvement in recent performance? Got to be down to our wonderful manager, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to pretend he doesn't take some credit, but I also think the players on the pitch have to take some credit. Ronan Curtis in particular, as we've discussed, I think has been... I think he's unbelievable. That's genuinely how I feel about it. I also think, like I said, like I alluded to earlier, I think the players have much more sort of bought into the kind of... I think we had a lot of players that didn't want to be around the club in the first few months of the season, and we've either...
we also had a lot of podcasters who didn't want to be around the club at the start of the season.
For sure, yeah, for sure. And thankfully, I forgot that Andrew Parkinson's left. That's great. But that's probably one of the main reasons why as well. No, I am joking. But no, I think it's a combination of Derek Adams and Tom Cleverley's work. I saw some, I mean, I don't know why I'm giving it airtime particularly, but I saw some comment on Facebook from a particular regular commenter on social media that Derek Adams deserves no credit, which is weird. But so he clearly does, as does Tom Cleverley, for continuing to learn, and I hope that continues. But I think it's a combination of... I'm going to say this whilst touching wood many a time. We, bar the injury to Kane, we appear to become it, to be the 11 appears to becoming, I can't speak, more settled. The players, I think basically everyone, bar the fans, because the fans have been there all season, has a part to play in that. I don't think there's one singular thing you can point to, but there are some big things like Ronan Curtis and the introduction of Derek Adams and Tom Cleverley learning. But I think it's a team effort, which is the good thing about, and I think that's a main reason why lots of people are feeling so positive at the moment. Is it's like there's many a way that we can get at the moment, and lots of players scoring, and it just feels like it should have done at the start of the season.
Joe, I think there's one important thing to say, because we always remember the fans forum and the difficult time that Simon Hallett, Paul Byrne had, and Derek Adams. Surely Simon Hallett, Paul Byrne, and the board deserve credit for sticking to their guns against overwhelming sort of support.
I'm not going to be the person to give them that credit, but
well, I think you should, Finn, to be honest, because sometimes steady hand on the tiller, belief in what you've appointed, and taking the long view rather than the short-term view is worthy. And
I kind of get the sense the next chairman's video is just going to be Simon sat on a sun lounger with a nice cocktail, just going ha 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 ha. I told you.
No, he in all seriousness, Joe, he had firm belief.
I don't blame him if he does, because he's stuck to his principles and he's backed the guy he believes is the right man, and fair play to him.
More importantly, Derek Adams did within the first week of his appointment. And in the end, if ever there's going to be a change in head coach, it will be Derek Adams's decision or recommendation as the director of football. And it was his belief in Tom that if you go back to the press conferences, you could see the relief in Tom Cleverley. He knew he wasn't going to get the sack, and he had the backing of the director of football and the board and the chairman. And that's one of the reasons why we are where we are. And I don't think that should be forgotten.
But I was going to say, like, did Hallett stick to his guns? Because I think where the huge amount of credit is due is that they changed course. I think that they, at the beginning of the season, was defined by complacency and like, well, everything will just be fine if we play the way we are. I think in November
taking experienced players, i.e. Wes Harding, on loan.
Yeah, I just think in November, they kept the manager and they deserve that has worked out. They also appointed Derek Adams, which I think was not the type of appointment we necessarily would have made in a more advantageous position. We changed the style of play. We decided to go back to basics. I think there was a recognition that we were in absolute crisis, and rather than stick their fingers in their ears, they acted on it. And everything that has been good has stemmed from a total reset of expectations and a total reset of the way of doing things, both on and off the pitch. And I think they deserve enormous credit, but I think it's the opposite reason to what Graham said. I don't think Hallett should sit there and say, I told you so. I think the fans...
No, I'm not saying that for no. I just think he should get recognition for doing what he did, that's all.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. But I think the thing he should get recognition for is not the things he kept the same, but the things that were changed. And to Joe's point, I would not accept it if he zoomed in for the chairman's chat saying "I told you so," because I think the fans wouldn't do. No, of course he wouldn't do that. But the fan, no, but just from a sort of substantive point, the fans told him so in October and November, and they listened, and they've got it right since then. So that's what they deserve enormous credit for. Everything that has been good has stemmed, whatever the parts of responsibility are for Adams and Cleverley and the signings. There's clearly been a reset in the way we do business from November to now, and it has reaped rewards. And we have gone from a club that looked arrogant about the way it was going about things, like things would, we're Plymouth Argyle was smarter than everyone else, and if we sign these players, this will, all just be fine, and things will kind of slot into place. To a club that seems to like be doing things in a studied, serious way, and that's appropriate for the level that we're at, and it's working, absolutely brilliantly. So they deserve enormous credit for that.
There you go. There goes my idea of Simon sitting on a sun lounger with a cocktail in his hand. The point I was making is I don't blame him, Paul, and Derek for being smug isn't the word, but I don't blame them for backing Cleverley when they did. I was surprised by it and I didn't agree with it, but I also don't feel like they shouldn't now sit there and think, we were right to give this guy time. As John says, we have changed processes, we have changed structures, and we are going to go about things in a different way, but we have stuck by our man, and he is delivering now the football that he obviously told them. He said it himself on Saturday night. This is the football he wants his teams to be playing. He's finally able to deliver.
Is it though? I think he's learned. Of course
it is. We've got 12 goals in a week.
No, I'm not saying about.
But it's not the same style, Joe.
I'm not.
It's not the styly stuff. Yeah, it's not the styly style.
I'm not talking about.
He's a young head coach. He's a young head coach who's learning on the job. He's young, he's
this-
inexperienced, and he's learned from his mistakes, and he's got better.
That's what I'm saying. But I don't think he came into the club at the start of the season thinking he was going to play like this.
No,
Look,
Of course he didn't.
if you look back to that Barnsley game, there are aspects of the way we played against Barnsley, which, by the way, I thought was actually a fairly good performance, and we've discussed, the refereeing in that game, etc., etc. Clearly, the defending was very bad, but there are aspects of that performance that are recognisable. We started that game like a steam train. Should have had a goal inside 4 minutes, but it was disallowed wrongly, in my opinion. But there was a high intensity, high pressing style. So that aspect of that is clearly now working. And I believe that that's what he wanted to do. But it was with a different formation, a different kind of relationship between attacking players. We're now playing a much more kind of robust, blocky system. So yeah, there are aspects of it that definitely are what we saw in the summer, but aspects of it that I think are wildly different. And yeah, of course, it's great that he's learned. He's more than entitled to learn and deserves enormous credit for that. But I don't think it's quite accurate to say that this is what we were expecting in the summer. It's a different style, and yeah, it's working brilliantly. But again, the credit as with my previous point with everyone at the club, the credit should go to people who have watched and learned and adapted, not people. The credit that's due here is not, well, we all stuck to our guns and just didn't change anything and everything suddenly magically improved. That's not what's happened.
We are wrapping this up because we've run out of time on my own personal clock on this show. Richard Worley sends us £5. Richard, you're incredibly generous. Well done to all at Plymouth yesterday for the great result, and his teams Arsenal and Swansea City won this weekend. Of course, you'll be delighted, Richard, that Argyle beat Cardiff City. I am not going to share your rejoice for Arsenal's victory. Please, God, let Pep get his hand on that Premier League trophy another time. Simon Fisher sent us a very nice message. Just want to say, love the podcast. It's always a great listen. Thank you for all your efforts and time, Simon. It is our pleasure. We love doing them. We were very disappointed we couldn't be with everybody in midweek owing to work commitments and illness. And, well, 50% of this show we're actually off doing a different program on a radio station. So we weren't able to be here with you. But we are here now. Final question came in from Brian again. He said, where is Sam? Is he still celebrating? And then I started this one as well from W. Rusco 1877. Just imagine Argyle v Bolton managed by Mr. Schumacher at the playoff final. I can tell you, that's where Sam is. He's been thinking about that all night. From all of us at the Green and White podcast, see you next week. Good night.
Bye.